Curse of the Kichai Shaman. Chapter 20. The Coven scatters. Domina was in the Washington County Jail and was not cooperating. She would not even speak English. Her fingerprint came back as Mary Anderson from Houston, Texas. Her fingerprints were in the database because she was an advanced emergency medical technician under her original name of Mary Anderson in 2008 when she was 20 years old. She had joined the Order of Nergal in 2010 and had quickly risen to High Priestess after she assassinated 2 former members that had drug problems. She was the Order of Nergal's go-to assassin and had an extensive support system. Where she was fighting against the police officers who arrested her, once in jail she fully cooperated with staff and followed all the rules. She was booked under the name Mary Anderson, and to jail staff she answered to that name. She was arrested on Thursday and in solitary confinement on Friday but Saturday. Because she cooperated with jail staff, she was moved to the women's unit where she had access to a phone. She made only one phone call that Saturday. She called Puella Conscribit. They confirmed each other's identity with their personalized Latin phrases and then began to speak to each other in coded Latin. Even if the listener understood Latin, they would not know the code. Domina told Puella to contact her lawyer Marcus Barth and have him find out the date and time of her arraignment, plan for her escape when she is transported to the courthouse, and have Marcus Barth come and see her beforehand and get word to her about the plan. They accomplished this all in coded Latin and ended the call. Domina then went back to her cell. In her cell, there were 3 other women. One of the women noticed Domina's tattoos. Domina had a full body suit made of tattoos of Assyrian and ancient Egyptian gods. The woman, named Nicole Diaz, told Domina that she was a witch and had killed her husband because he was cheating on her. She told Domina that she had 3 grown daughters, and her middle child was a witch also. This was her 3rd time in jail. She had been in twice before for domestic violence against her husband. Domina listened, and Nicole talked. Nicole liked to talk. Domina needed someone who knew the routine, so she made quick friends with her. Domina asked her about how they were transferred to court for arraignment. Nicole said they were taken there in a van that left at 7:30 in the morning. They were shackled with their hands chained to their waist and with leg shackles to prevent them from running. Then they sat in a courtroom with a lot of defendants, and court started at 9 in the morning. The woman said that she was usually one of the last ones called as the lesser crimes went first. Domina asked Nicole if she would make a phone call for her and tell the person she talks to the exact same thing about how the court process works. Nicole agreed, and Domina told her to say, "Amicus sum nergal," when she first got on the phone. Then just tell her about the process that will take place Monday like you are talking about yourself and answer any questions she has, but do not use my name. Domina gave Nicole the number of Puella's 3rd phone. Puella had 3 phones. One was her regular smartphone, the next was a burner phone she used to talk with members of the Order of Nergal, and the last phone was a burner phone for talking to regular people clandestinely. This was the number that Domina gave to Nicole. Nicole went to the phone bank and called the number she was given. A woman's voice answered with the word, "Salve." It was Puella saying hello in Latin. Nicole did not miss a beat and said, "Amicus sum nergal." She did not stop talking and wait. She started talking about what she was going to be doing Monday at her arraignment. Nicole immediately said, "So Monday at 7:30 I'm going by van to the back of the courthouse for my arraignment. They will shackle my hands to my waist with chains and put on leg shackles. I will have to sit in a crowded courtroom and wait to be called. The people charged with felonies get called last, so I will be there a long time." Puella said, "Gratias," and ended the call. Nicole came back to Domina and asked what salve and gratias meant. Domina said that they meant hello and thanks. Domina thanked Nicole for making the call. Nicole talked to Domina the rest of the day and into the evening that Saturday. Nicole did all the talking, and Domina just listened. If Nicole asked her a question, she would answer, but otherwise she just kept quiet. Nicole told Domina that she shot and killed her husband after he came home drunk and told her he had found someone else. She told her that he had her arrested 2 times before this because she would beat his ass when she caught him cheating on her. She said both times she put him in the hospital. Finally, at lights out, Nicole stopped talking and Domina got some sleep. The next morning was Sunday, and the trustee told Domina that her lawyer was here to see her. Marcus Barth was a lawyer from Fort Worth, Texas, that worked at K&C Crates Limited Liability Partnership. He had been a member of the Order of Nergal since 2002. Domina met with him in a private area with only one guard present. He talked about how she would plead in her case, and she told him, "Not guilty." The meeting was short. At the end of the meeting, he shook her hand and told her he would see her tomorrow. Marcus Barth was an older gentleman and looked impressive. That is why they let him meet his client in a room and not through a security window. It was a mistake because when he shook her hand, he slipped her a note and a handcuff key. She hid the handcuff key in her prison pants. She put it in the hole she had made in the waistline along with the note. When she got back to her cell, she took the note out and read it. It was in the code used by the Order of Nergal that used 3 alternating alphabets. It said that when she arrived at the back of the courthouse Monday morning, there would be a diversion. She was to use the distraction to slip her restraints and run across the street to a black Subaru BRZ that would be parked on South Douglas Street. Domina put the note in her mouth and chewed it into a ball, then flushed it down the toilet. She spent the rest of Sunday listening to Nicole talk. Nicole kept saying that she wished she could escape because she was looking at life in prison as a third-time felon going down on a murder rap. Domina did not say a word about her plan to Nicole. The next morning, they got up at 6:30 a.m. and were fed breakfast. At 7 a.m., they called out the names of the women that were going to court that day. There were 7 of them, including Domina and Nicole. They were taken out of the unit and lined up in the hallway where deputies applied restraints to them all. There was a shackle on their legs and their hands were chained to their waist with a chain that wrapped around like a belt. They were then led outside and into the back of a van. The van had 3 bench seats. Domina and Nicole were the first to go in the van, so they were in the back bench seat. Another woman sat next to them. 3 women were in the bench seat in front of them, and 1 woman was on the front bench seat. The 2 deputies, 1 man and 1 woman, were in the front seats. The woman deputy was driving. Behind them was a second van with male inmates in it that were also going to court that day. The deputies had both driven inmates to court for years with no problems, so they both had become complacent. They should have been paying attention because the moment they started driving, Domina pulled the handcuff key out of her waistband and began to slip out of her restraints. When she was free, she gave the handcuff key to Nicole and whispered to her to wait for the diversion and then stay with her when they ran. Nicole slipped her restraints and then whispered to the woman beside her that they were going to make a break for it and handed her the key. This woman also slipped her restraints. The van pulled up to the back of the courthouse and the van with the male inmates pulled in behind it, and when it stopped, the 2 deputies got out and unloaded the men in their charge and were walking them into the courthouse. The 2 deputies in the woman's van then got out, and when the male deputy opened the door, he heard tires screeching. A car had come speeding down South Douglas Street heading north. It ran the stop sign and careened to the right, running through the landscaping bushes on the corner. It came headlong into the parking lot behind the courthouse and slammed into the back of the van that the men had been transported in. This pushed the men's van into the woman's van with a loud crash. Domina yelled, "Go!" The woman who was beside Nicole pushed past the women in the front bench seats and bolted out the door of the van, having slipped her restraints. She ran south out of the parking lot and turned east on Alamo Street, and 3 deputies chased after her. The man that had crashed the car into the 2 vans bolted out of the wrecked car and followed the women south out of the parking lot, then east on Alamo Street. But he turned north on Park Street and ran in front of the courthouse and jumped into a black Mazda Miata, which sped off. The remaining deputy chased after him but turned back when he saw him get away in the black sports car. During all this, Nicole pushed past the women in the front 2 seats, followed closely by Domina. Nicole turned to follow the first women, but Domina grabbed her arm and pulled her to the north, where they went around the front of the women's van and went west across the parking lot and across South Douglas Street to a Subaru BRZ that had just pulled out of a parking spot behind the courthouse. Domina jumped in the passenger side door and climbed into the back while Nicole was getting in also. The Subaru took off while Nicole was barely in the car, and the force of the acceleration caused the passenger door to slam closed. They sped around the block and went left on Alamo Street, then turned left on Chappelle Hill Street, which was Texas 105. The Subaru sped out of the general area, but when no police followed, they slowed down and drove the speed limit on Texas 105. Puella was driving and she had brought Domina a change of clothes, so Domina changed in the cramped back seat of the Subaru BRZ. Puella drove for almost 5 hours until they came to Texarkana. They stopped at Walmart. Puella and Domina said their Latin prayer for noon. Nicole stayed in the car while Puella and Domina went inside and got some more food and soda. Puella had packed a cooler that was in the back seat, but now they had another mouth to feed. They got Nicole a change of clothes and checked out and paid for everything with cash. Nicole moved to the back seat and changed out of her prison clothes. They put Domina's prison clothes and Nicole's prison clothes in a trash bag and put them in the trash at Walmart. They restocked the cooler. Puella got in the passenger seat and Domina drove. They stopped at an EZ Mart and filled up with gas, and Puella paid in cash, and they used the restroom. They took I-30 out of town to I-40, and Domina drove almost 5 hours until they got to Memphis, Tennessee. They stopped and used the bathroom and filled up with gas. Then they took I-40 out of town. This time, Nicole drove. They told her not to speed, and she stayed under the posted speed limit. At dusk, Puella and Domina prayed their Latin prayer for sunset. When they got to I-60, they took that highway and stopped in Bowling Green, Kentucky after 4 hours on the road. In Bowling Green, they used the restroom and filled up with gas, and Domina drove when they left. After almost 3 hours on the road, they stopped in Lexington, Kentucky. Puella and Domina said their Latin prayer for midnight. They got gas and used the restroom, and then Puella drove. After 2.5 hours, at a little after 3 a.m. Tuesday morning on the 17th of October, they got to MacArthur, Ohio. Puella drove out of town a bit and down a wooded road. They were on Morgan Road, and Puella took a right down a private drive until they came to a locked gate. Puella got out her phone and called a number. She then spoke Latin, and the guy on the other end spoke Latin back. She told him that they were at his gate. He said he would be right out but had to get dressed. About 15 minutes later, they saw headlights coming up the drive towards the locked gate. A quad all-terrain vehicle stopped just inside the gate, and a man in his late 40s got out and unlocked the chain on the gate and let them drive in. Puella stopped just inside the gate and let the man drive his all-terrain vehicle in front of them. They drove down a long, narrow private drive until they came to an open field that had gardens in it that showed in the headlights of their car. Besides that, it was completely dark. They pulled up to a large house nestled in the trees. The man parked his vehicle in a 3-sided garage that was open on one end, and they parked in the open behind him. They walked over to the house and up some steps to a covered porch. There were 8 rough wood carvings along the wall of the house that ran down the porch. They were chainsaw carvings of Assyrian and Egyptian gods. When the line of 8 carvings ended, there was a door to the house on the wall off the porch. The man took them inside the house, and the room opened up to a 2-story ceiling with stairs on the right and left walls going up to a walkway that led to rooms on the 2nd floor. In the middle of this open room, there was a large tree stump that had been built into the middle of the back part of this room. It looked like the house was built around it. The stump went up 3 feet and then was carved into a 10-foot statue of Nergal that towered over everything in the room. There were 3 couches by the statue of Nergal, one directly behind it and then one to the left of it and one to the right of it. The man said, "Welcome to the Ohio Domus Nergal." Puella told Nicole, "This is Occultus Agricola, and this is his house and farm. Please treat it with respect and reverence. He is a high priest in the order of Nergal." Nicole walked up to him and curtsied and offered to shake his hand and said, "It is a pleasure to meet you, Your Highness. I am Nicole." Occultus said, "Make yourselves at home. Puella and Domina, you know where the pillows and sleeping bags are. If you don't mind, I will have you stay out here on the couches tonight. I was not expecting company and need to clean out my guest rooms. If you don't mind, I am going back to bed." He then went up the stairs on the right and disappeared into one of the upstairs rooms and closed the door. Domina went to a closet on the 1st floor behind the center couch and got out 3 pillows and 3 sleeping bags and went to each couch and deposited 1 pillow and 1 sleeping bag on each couch. Domina said to Nicole in a reassuring voice, "You are safe here with us. Nobody will find you here. Take the couch on the left and try to sleep." The 3 ladies took off their shoes and got in their sleeping bags and went to sleep. Back on Thursday, October the 12th, Diane had to drive back to Georgetown alone after Domina got arrested. Her spirits could not have been lower. While driving, she got out her phone and called Venator. They spoke Latin to each other and then started to talk. Diane told Venator that she had seen Domina get arrested and that she was heading back alone. Venator told her to come back to Marjorie's house and they would plan what to do. Venator, upon getting word that his best assassin was in jail, got out his coded journal and began searching for a new base of operations. He found a priest of Nergal named Modico Sacerdos that lived in Goldthwaite, Texas, about 90 miles from Marjorie's house in Georgetown. Venator called him on the phone. When Modico answered, Venator spoke a coded Latin phrase to him. Modico spoke back the properly coded Latin phrase to Venator. Venator then told Modico that Diane, Richard, and he needed a place to stay for a while and that they could pay him $300 a night. Modico told him that all brothers and sisters of Nergal were welcome to stay with him. He said that he did not need any money and that their fellowship would be enough payment. Venator began to pack up his things and put them in his black Toyota 4Runner. Diane made it back, and Venator told her he had a new place lined up that they could stay at, so she needed to pack up her and Richard's stuff and get ready to drive for about an hour and a half. Venator went to Marjorie and paid her $3,000 in cash, which was the money he owed her for letting them stay 10 days at her house for $300 a day. Venator wrote down the directions to Modico's house in code on a sheet of paper and gave it to Diane. Then he left in his 4Runner. Diane had Richard drive her car and follow her as she drove the rental car to the airport in Austin. They stopped at a Chevron on I-35 in Austin and filled up both cars with gas. She returned the rental car at the rental car terminal and got in her car and drove back up I-35 to Georgetown, then went west on Texas 29 State Highway for 10 miles. She then turned north on U.S. Highway 190 for 70 miles until they came to Goldthwaite, Texas. Diane followed the coded directions to 127 Rim Rock Road. She pulled down a wide private drive to a big house and saw Venator's 4Runner parked in the driveway. She pulled up behind it in her BMW and called him on the phone. They both spoke their Latin phrases, and then she said she was in the driveway. Venator and Modico came out of the house and met Diane and Richard in the driveway. Diane was still devastated by what happened to Domina, and Richard was a shell of himself eaten up by intense anger that David Madure was still alive. They all went inside the big house, and Modico gave them a tour and took them each to their own bedroom. Every bedroom had a different painting of Nergal. Modico had 6 bedrooms in his house, and because of his secret lifestyle as a priest of Nergal, he rarely had visitors and was in essence very lonely. He was happy to finally have like-minded company. Venator called a meeting and they all gathered in the breakfast area just off the kitchen. Richard wanted to know when they were going to kill David, as that is all he was capable of thinking about because of the curse that was on him. Venator said they needed to lay low for a while and regroup. He said they would not do anything for 2 weeks. Then they would deal with David Madure. Back in Georgetown, Marjorie did not stay around her home. She called her sister in Nergal, Avia Monial. They confirmed each other's identity with Latin phrases, and she asked if she could visit for a while. Avia said that she would be glad to have her over, and she gave Marjorie her new address. She lived at 4925 Fletcher Isle Road in Ponchatoula, Louisiana. Marjorie quickly packed a large suitcase full of her clothes and toiletries, packed some food and drinks in a cooler, and loaded them into her Mercedes-Benz 2020 S550. She punched in the address in her Google Maps app on her phone and got directions. She quickly got out of town and took Highway 290 to Houston, Texas, where she filled up her tank with premium gas and paid cash at a Chevron station. She had driven 3 hours, and it was 6:26 p.m. and about to get dark. She took I-10 to Louisiana, then switched to I-12 for a long while, then followed the directions to her friend's house at 4925 Fletcher Isle Road in Ponchatoula, Louisiana. This took another 5 hours of driving, and she got there just before midnight on Friday the 13th of October. Marjorie pulled into the driveway. Avia heard her arrival and had been waiting up for her. Avia went out to her and welcomed her to her house. Marjorie took her big suitcase in, and Avia carried Marjorie's cooler. At midnight, they said their Latin prayer to Nergal together. Members of the Order of Nergal lead secretive lives and did not get the chance to socialize very often, so it was a real treat to have like-minded company come over and stay for a while.